All right, my name is Judson Powell. This is the fastest 15 minutes in social media and on the internet. I want you to hit the subscribe button, the like button, the share button. Do all of that. Like, subscribe, share for me so that I can grow my page, especially if you like the content. Even if you don't like the content, you may hate me, whatever, but let other people see what we're talking about. Anyway, I want to talk a little bit more about the mass shootings and also talk about the rule of law, which is really important in America. The rule of law is extremely important, and one thing is that the president, our current president, does not follow the rule of law. And the thing about it is that I'm not saying that everybody has to agree with the rule of law or with the laws in the country, but at least if there is law, then you have to follow it. And so the current president, President Trump, has never followed the rule of law. And that's one of the problems with what's going on in the country right now, especially with all these mass shootings, all of the things that are going on, especially right now, the deficit going up through the roof. Eventually, see, all of these things, eventually it's like one of those chickens come home to roost type things. You know, as long as the deficit continues to go up, then eventually at some point it's going to bottom out. And once it bottoms out, bam, there's going to be a recession or a depression. And, you know, we've seen it before in the past. We know the result of this type of economic policy, and we're still heading down that slippery slope. The other thing is that with the rule of law, the first thing that he didn't do was he has not released his tax returns. Every president prior to him has released their tax returns. There's never been a president. That's just the law. That's the rule of law. When you run for the highest office in the land, you're supposed to release your tax returns. He has not done that. There have been millions, I'm talking about millions of taxpayer dollars have been spent trying to get this man to release his tax returns. The only thing that's now starting to finally work is the fact that, you know, they've been filing so many lawsuits, and now we have a couple of federal judges who are willing to hear those suits. For the most part, a lot of the Republican-leaning judges have not heard those lawsuits. Here's the other thing: the state of California passed a law stating that unless you release your tax returns, you cannot be on their presidential ballot. So there are other states that are doing the same thing, that are starting to follow suit and say, look, if you don't release your tax returns, you can't run for office in our state because we don't know who you are. The reason why, and many believe this is, this theory, but the reason why most people believe that he won't release his tax returns is because he is bankrupt in a number of his businesses, and also they show that he has refused or not paid certain taxes on certain businesses that he owned. So that's why people assume that he will not release his tax returns. So that's the first thing. The second thing is he does not follow the rule of law where it comes to legislation or making legislation. All right. Everything that he does has been through what? Basically through executive orders or saying things on social media. He doesn't really use the system as it was set up and as it's supposed to be used. In other words, he doesn't have his people write bills that are given to Congress and then go to Congress, put them on the floor, allow them to be debated and changed and all of that, the way that our rule of law works here in the United States of America. We do not have a dictator, as our leader. We have a president, and the president is only supposed to carry out the executive branch. That's why we have the three branches of government. We have judicial, executive, and legislative. Well, the president is only supposed to do, his part of the job, and the rest of it is supposed to be up to everybody else. But everybody can get legislation through. But here's the thing. The bottom line is that you're supposed to do it according to the rule of law. Allow people to debate it. Allow people to understand what it is that's going on and be able to put their input on everything. And once again, I will reiterate, the only piece of legislation that has really gotten through since Trump has been president is what? The tax decrease for the rich and the tax increase for the poor. Okay, and that's only because, and once again, that's because of our good Democratic friends who voted for it as well, because they're rich too. Don't get the game twisted. The Democrats are millionaires and billionaires too, so they also have money. And so when those bills that came through, of course they cut their taxes, and guess what? Once again, simple economic principles are what? If you cut money in one area, it increases the burden on something in another area, which means that when you cut the taxes for the rich, the poor and the middle class are going to end up paying more, and that's what's going on right now. So don't get the game twisted. And then finally, the other thing where he does not follow the rule of law is he just puts things out there, and they're once again, without any debate, without any anything. It's just like, okay, I'm going to use executive orders for everything, and that's basically what he does. Executive order. For example, when he first got in office, and we talked about this, he wanted to have a travel ban. Why? The same thing he's been doing with these tariffs. He's basically hurting the common people of the country. Okay, travel ban. Who does a travel ban affect? It does not. It affects the people that are in that industry. Okay, the people that are in those industries that deal with travel, regardless of what we believe, those people are affected. Their income, their money. The same thing is true with all these tariffs and all of that he's been putting on farmers. Farmers are losing their shirts because what? They cannot import and export the crops that they grow, or the animals that they produce. So they can't use that. There are other industries that have been tariffs have been placed on, or tax breaks have been taken away from, including the automotive industry. Ford Motor Company closed down several plants, laid off thousands of people. Why? Because they can't afford to compete when they're having to pay these high tariffs. And it's easier and less expensive. And he's always talking about, how people are coming over taking our jobs. Basically, he's giving our jobs away because they know these big major corporations understand, look, I can get somebody overseas to work for a lot cheaper than what I have to pay somebody to work in the United States. So every job that we have to work as hard as we can in order to keep those jobs here and stop exporting them overseas. But you have to understand, it's a fake agenda. It's one of those things, just like the border wall. Okay, the border wall is unnecessary. There is not, him giving orders on television talking about shoot people at the border and all this kind of stuff, and authorizing military people to go to the border. Not necessary. There is no war at the border. They're not all these people trying to cross, and what they don't realize, and what most people don't realize, is most of the people that are trying to cross the border illegally, the reason why is most of them are not Mexican. All right, first of all, most of them are not Mexican. Most of them are not gang members. The reason why they're at the border is because the United States of America has meddled in the financial affairs of the countries in South America and Central America where they come from, and they can't afford to eat and they can't afford to live. So they're trying to get someplace, the same thing that you would do for your family. If your family couldn't eat and your family couldn't live, you would do what was necessary in order that they could eat and they could live. So that's one of the other things. And so all of these things are created by propaganda and by the media in order, the liberal media, in order so that, certain agendas can be taken and carried out. There's no need to spend billions of dollars creating a border wall. And in fact, like I always tell people, I live here in Arizona. I've been down to the border. I've been in these, little towns and all that kind of stuff. Even where the mass shooting took place in El Paso, there's not a rush of criminals and all this stuff like the president tries to make people out to be, trying to cross the border. And they're not taking, and once again, like I said on the last video, they are not taking primary jobs. They're not taking jobs, they're not taking high paying jobs. These people are taking very low paying jobs. And here's the other thing. Who's giving them these jobs? Rich people. They're not coming over here working for poor people. They're coming over here working for the rich, for people who own corporations, for people that are millionaires and billionaires. They're not coming over here working, working for somebody else who doesn't have any money. So, and if I don't remember, if you recall, back when they first started trying to give all this rhetoric, one of the things that they did when they went and they discovered who illegal aliens were working for, really, most of them were working in the homes of very wealthy people. Okay, so let's not get the game twisted, and it's not affecting our industry. What's affecting our industry is the poor decisions, just like the fact that right now, one thing that I'm very interested in is solar energy. Is solar energy, because why? Solar energy can basically take you off the grid and allow you to live, pretty much free. And they don't want that. They want you to be paying bills. That's like when President Trump was campaigning, he was talking about coal and oil and big oil. It's because coal and big oil, that's how they can tax you. They know that if you put solar panels on your house, guess what? I don't have to pay you for electricity. In fact, they have systems now where I can basically run my entire house, and if I have well water or whatever, I don't need you at all, except maybe to pay my property taxes. So these are the things that the government is trying to do. Why? Because the government is run by the rich and the wealthy. That's who's running the government. So that's why we always tell you, I understand the logic of telling people, well, your vote doesn't matter or your vote doesn't count. But I don't necessarily believe that that's true. I just believe that I don't think it's the only component, but I definitely believe that it is one component. And so, so I hear certain political pundits talking about, well, your vote doesn't mean nothing. I see people on the internet talk about, well, you shouldn't vote or whatever because it doesn't matter. Well, in a way it does matter, but it only matters if you can get people to adhere to a certain agenda and then hold them accountable and responsible. If they're not held accountable and responsible, then it's kind of difficult. So I guess that's what I'm always saying about the Democrats, because people, especially Africans, descendant of slaves here in America, they do not hold the politicians accountable for giving them their vote. So if you give them your vote, then they should do what you need them to do for you as well. And which is one thing that people of European descent, they make sure that they hold these people accountable for what's going on. But the reason why Trump needs to be basically impeached is so that it's a punitive thing. It's punishment. It's not necessarily to remove him from office, but that would be good too. Don't get me wrong. I would love to see him removed from office, but it needs to be so that he understands that, look, you have to follow the rule of law like everybody else. We are a nation of laws. You must follow that rule of law. And if you don't follow the rule of law, then you should not be the president of the United States of America. That's the bottom line. And the one thing that, you could say, and his entire legacy, basically his entire legacy is, I'm just going to undo everything that President Obama did, which is a horrible legacy. Create your own legacy. When you just create a legacy of hate and a legacy of just undoing the things that the previous administration did, then what kind of legacy is that? That's horrible. Really it is. And basically that's all he's trying to do now, and tax cuts for the rich. That's it. So these big corporations like Walmart and Amazon can keep on making billions and billions and billions of dollars, and being able to hoard and keep the money. That's all it is. Meanwhile, people are going broke, people are hungry, people are homeless. Most cities have the largest homeless populations that they've ever had in the history of the United States. Those are just things to think about. All right. Anyway, that's the fastest 15 minutes in social media and on the internet. I'm Judson Powell. Please hit the like button. Please hit the subscribe button. And I thank you very much for watching. I love all of you, and basically let love live and carry the day. All right. I love you. Bye-bye.